My husband's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. 3 words glowed on the screen that would change everything. I miss you. Without hesitation, I picked up his phone and typed back, "Come over. My wife isn't home tonight." 45 minutes later, our doorbell rang. My husband's face went completely white. He had no idea I'd just set the perfect trap. The smell of slow-cooked pot roast filled our townhouse in Arlington, Virginia. Steam rose from the Dutch oven as my husband, Marcus, stirred the rich gravy with practiced ease. He was humming along to some old-school R&B, completely at peace in our recently renovated kitchen with its white subway tiles and butcher block countertops. From the outside, we had everything. Marcus was a senior project manager at a tech consulting firm in D.C. I was a marketing director for a nonprofit in Alexandria. We'd been married for 7 years, building our life from scratch, from a cramped studio in College Park to this beautiful 3-bedroom townhouse just outside the Capitol Beltway. I sat at the kitchen island, pretending to scroll through my phone, but my mind was elsewhere. The late afternoon sun streaming through our windows illuminated Marcus's new iPhone lying face down on the marble counter. That phone had become like a third person in our marriage, always there, always demanding his attention, always coming between us. Marcus turned to me with that smile that had won me over at Howard University. "Babe, taste this and tell me if it needs more rosemary." He brought the wooden spoon to my lips. The gravy was perfect, rich, savory, with just the right amount of herbs. Any other day, I would have pulled him close and kissed him. But today, the taste turned to ash in my mouth. Because 2 weeks ago, I'd found the credit card statements. Then came the moment that confirmed everything. Buzz, his phone screen lit up silently on the counter. My eyes darted to it instinctively. Sender, Bria, marketing intern. Message. "I miss you, 2 hearts emoji." 4 words. 1 emoji. That's all it took to shatter the carefully constructed life I'd been living. My heart didn't break. That pain had already happened 2 weeks ago when I saw the charges. Dinner at the Wharf, $287. Hotel in Tyson's Corner, $312. Victoria's Secret, $156. All marked as client entertainment or business expenses. For our anniversary last month, Marcus took me to Olive Garden and gave me a Pandora charm. Now I felt nothing but cold, calculated rage. I knew Bria. She was the 23-year-old intern who'd joined his department 4 months ago. Marcus had mentioned her, sharp kid, great ideas, really motivated. What he failed to mention was what else she was motivated to do. I took a deep breath, my racing pulse slowing as my mind shifted into strategic mode. I'm a 33-year-old black woman who worked 2 jobs to get through college, who fought for every promotion in rooms where I was the only one who looked like me, who'd built a career through grit and intelligence. I don't scream. I don't throw things. I plan. If I confronted him now, Marcus would have excuses ready. "She's just a kid with a crush. It doesn't mean anything. You're being paranoid." I needed more than a text message. I needed irrefutable proof that would leave no room for his lies. Marcus went back to stirring, the spoon clinking against the pot. That sound matched the pounding of my heart. I reached for his phone casually, as if I was just moving it out of the way. The passcode was our wedding date, June 12th. The irony cut deep. He used the most sacred date of our lives to protect his dirty secrets. I typed in 0612217. The phone unlocked. His messages were right there. Bria's text at the top. I didn't open it. That would show read receipts. Instead, I tapped on their conversation thread. My stomach turned. Can't stop thinking about last night. Kissing face emoji. "When can I see you again? I need you. Thank you for the gift, Daddy. You spoil me." Kiss mark emoji. "Wearing what you bought me right now. Wish you could see." The messages went back months. There were voice notes I couldn't bring myself to listen to. Photos that made bile rise in my throat. But I maintained my composure. I needed to finish this right. I scrolled to the current conversation and typed my response. My fingers cold but perfectly steady. "Come over tonight. My wife isn't home. I've got the place to myself." Smirking face emoji. I hit send. The message showed delivered immediately. Then, read. Dots appeared. Typing. "OMG, really? Romantic face emoji. Yes. I'll bring wine and dessert. Be there by 8. Can't wait, baby." 2 hearts emoji. Perfect. I took a screenshot of the entire exchange and airdropped it to my own phone. Then I carefully deleted every trace of what I'd just done from Marcus's device, cleared the notification history, and placed the phone back exactly where it had been. Same angle, same position. I looked at Marcus's back as he tasted the gravy and adjusted the seasoning. He was still the same man, still humming, still playing the role of the devoted husband. But now I saw him clearly, a fraud. I smoothed my hair, straightened my blouse, and composed my face into a mask of calm. The storm building inside me would wait. It would strike at precisely the right moment. This was going to be a very long evening. Marcus plated the pot roast on our wedding china and placed it in the center of our dining table. The aroma of beef, carrots, and potatoes in red wine sauce filled the room. He'd even made garlic mashed potatoes on the side, my favorite. He served me a generous portion, selecting the most tender pieces of meat. "Eat up, baby," he said warmly. "I slow-cooked this for 6 hours. Meat's so tender it falls apart." He went on about how he'd gone to 3 different Whole Foods to find grass-fed beef, how he'd wanted everything perfect because I worked so hard and deserved to be pampered. I accepted the plate, forcing my hands not to shake. I took a bite and chewed mechanically. It was delicious, perfectly seasoned, the meat practically melting in my mouth. But swallowing felt like forcing down gravel. I watched the man across from me. Marcus ate with enthusiasm, telling me about his day. He talked about landing a new contract with a Fortune 500 client, how his VP had praised him in the all-hands meeting, how he was being fast-tracked for senior director. But he didn't mention Bria. Not once. I marveled at his performance. How could someone receive an "I miss you" message from his mistress, and then sit here acting like husband of the year? Maybe this wasn't even the first time. Maybe our entire 7-year marriage had been built on lies, and I was just now seeing the foundation crumbling. I remembered our wedding at that historic venue in Baltimore. Marcus had held my hands and promised before God, our families, and 200 guests, that he would forsake all others. My father had pulled him aside for the talk about being a good husband. My mother had cried happy tears, believing her daughter had found a good man. What would they say if they knew? I pushed my plate away. "I'm full. Not that hungry tonight." Marcus's face showed immediate concern. He reached across the table to touch my forehead. "You feeling okay? Coming down with something?" His hand was warm, but his touch made my skin crawl. I pulled away gently, standing to get water. I glanced at the microwave clock. 7:15 p.m. From wherever Bria lived, probably one of those new luxury apartments in Navy Yard that young professionals loved, to our place in Arlington would take about 45 minutes with evening traffic on 395. She'd be here soon. "Come relax in the living room," Marcus said, starting to clear dishes. "I'll handle cleanup." "You've had a long week, babe," the devoted husband act continued. I wondered how many times he'd played this role while thinking about her. I sat on our gray sectional, the one we'd spent months picking out at West Elm. I picked up the remote but didn't turn on the TV. My eyes stayed fixed on the front door. My ears strained for any sound in the hallway. Part of me, the naive part that still existed somewhere deep inside, hoped she wouldn't come. That this was all a terrible nightmare. That I could keep living in comfortable ignorance. But the stronger part of me, the part that had been forged by betrayal and credit card statements showing $4,300 spent on another woman in 3 months, wanted that doorbell to ring. I wanted this infection exposed so it could finally be cut out, even if the scar lasted forever. The minutes crawled by. Water stopped running in the kitchen. Marcus emerged, drying his hands on a dish towel. "Want some ice cream, babe? I got that salted caramel you love from Trader Joe's." I shook my head, giving him a weak smile. He didn't notice how forced it was. He'd stopped truly seeing me a long time ago. He dropped onto the other end of the sectional, scrolling through his phone, probably checking to see if Bria had responded to his message. His face showed nothing but casual contentment. He was probably already planning what excuse he'd use later when I went to bed early. He had no idea the bomb was about to drop. 7:58 p.m. Ding dong. The doorbell shattered the silence like a gunshot. Marcus's head snapped up. His eyes went wide. He looked at the clock, then at the door, confusion spreading across his face like a stain. Who could that be? He looked at me as if I should have the answer. I remained perfectly still on the sectional, my expression carved from ice. "Stay there," I said firmly. "I'll get it." My tone left no room for argument. I stood and walked to the door. Each footstep across our hardwood floor echoed in the suddenly silent apartment. My heart hammered, not from fear, but from the anticipation of a hunter about to spring the trap. I reached for the brushed nickel door handle, took a deep breath, and pulled it open. Standing in my doorway was a young woman who couldn't have been older than 24. Petite, light-skinned, with long box braids and full makeup. She wore a tight dress that showed everything and carried a bottle of wine in one hand and a bakery box in the other. The moment she saw me, her flirtatious smile died on her lips. Her eyes went huge with shock. Her mouth fell open. The color drained from her face, making her contour look like war paint. She'd expected Marcus to answer the door. She'd probably rehearsed throwing her arms around him, maybe even kissing him in our doorway. The reality, me, the wife, standing there with a look that could freeze hell, hit her like ice water. I said nothing. I just stared, letting the silence become unbearable. Oh, Bria stammered, taking a step backward. I heard Marcus's footsteps behind me. Babe, who is it? What's taking so long? His voice made Bria flinch visibly. Her eyes darted past me, searching desperately for an escape that didn't exist. I smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Hello, Bria, I said loudly, clearly, making sure Marcus heard every word. Are you here to see my husband? My question detonated like a grenade. I heard Marcus's sharp intake of breath behind me. Bria looked like she wanted the earth to swallow her whole misses. Someone told me Mr. Johnson wasn't feeling well. She was shrinking, gripping that wine bottle like a lifeline. I was in the neighborhood, and I thought, to check on him, bring some dessert. Such a pathetic lie. Our townhouse community in Arlington wasn't a place you just passed through. You had to specifically enter our complex, go through 2 gates. She'd have had to text Marcus our address, then buzzed through security. But I didn't correct her yet. The fun of cat and mouse is watching the mouse exhaust itself. I kept my cold smile. How thoughtful. Marcus has mentioned you. The brilliant intern with all those fresh ideas. I saw her start to turn, ready to bolt. My voice stopped her cold. If you take one step away from this door, by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, your parents in Georgia and everyone at the office, including HR and the CEO, will receive screenshots of your conversations with my husband. She froze like a statue. Come inside, I continued, my voice dropping to Arctic temperature. Let's talk like adults. Cooperate, and you keep some dignity. Run, and I destroy your entire future. Bria stared at me with terrified eyes. Slowly, reluctantly, she stepped across the threshold. What a lovely surprise, I said, projecting my voice toward the living room. Please, come in. Let me properly introduce you to my husband. I emphasized husband like a brand, marking my territory. We entered the living room. Marcus stood frozen near the sectional, his face gray as concrete. His phone lay forgotten on the coffee table. He looked between Bria and me, sheer panic in his eyes. He couldn't understand why she was here or why I was so calm. Sit. I gestured to the armchair across from the sectional. Bria perched on the edge, ramrod straight, knees pressed together, clutching her wine and bakery box like shields. I turned to Marcus. Sit next to me. He moved like a zombie, stumbling to the sectional. Despite our AC running at 72 degrees, sweat beaded on his forehead. He sat as far from me as the furniture allowed, as if I might explode. Let me make proper introductions, I began, saccharine sweet. Bria, this is my husband, Marcus Johnson. We've been married for 7 wonderful years. He's the most amazing man, loyal, honest, devoted. He's never once let me down. Each word was a needle piercing Marcus's skin. I watched him visibly shrink. And Marcus, this is Bria, the talented intern you've mentioned. She heard you were sick and brought wine and dessert. At 8 p.m., such dedication to her supervisor's well-being. Bria shot Marcus a desperate look, silently begging him to say something, do something, rescue her. But all she got was cowardice. Marcus kept his eyes glued to the floor, unable to speak or even look up. The confident executive who ran meetings with senior VPs had transformed into a terrified little boy. Even Bria looked disgusted by his weakness. Let me get our guests something to drink, I announced. Bria, what would you like? We have Coke, juice, water, iced tea? Water is fine, she whispered. I went to the kitchen, deliberately making noise so they'd know I was close enough to hear anything they tried to say. I opened the cabinet and passed right by our nice glassware, the Waterford crystal we'd gotten as wedding gifts. My hand reached for the plastic cups from Costco. the cheap disposable kind we used for backyard barbecues. I filled one with tap water. The choice was intentional. I wanted Bria to understand that her place in this house, in our lives, was as cheap and disposable as that cup. Use once and throw away. Not worth keeping. I returned with a tray. I placed the plastic cup in front of Bria. For Marcus and myself, I poured sparkling water into our crystal glasses. The contrast was stark on our glass coffee table. Bria stared at the plastic cup, then at our matching crystal glasses. Her face flushed deep red. She understood the message perfectly. I sat next to Marcus, pressed myself against him, took his arm possessively, nestled my head against his shoulder. Marcus went completely rigid. Through his shirt, I could feel his heart racing like a trapped animal. So, Bria, I began conversationally, stroking Marcus's arm. How's the internship going? Is Marcus a good boss? Not working you too hard, I hope? Bria answered in monosyllables, unable to watch this display of marital intimacy. In her eyes, I saw envy, bitterness, and fear mixing together. She was witnessing how the man she wanted belonged, legally, completely, publicly, to me. Whatever promises Marcus had whispered to her meant nothing compared to this reality. The air felt thick enough to choke on. Then I shifted gears, my voice brightening artificially. Marcus, I forgot to tell you, I booked our trip today. 2 weeks in Turks and Caicos next month. We're staying at that resort you wanted, the one right on Grace Bay. I turned to Bria. Have you been to Turks, sweetie? She shook her head mutely. Oh, it's paradise. We went for our 5th anniversary, and Marcus promised we'd make it an annual tradition. We're also finalizing that investment property in Richmond, the duplex near VCU. It'll be great rental income. And I talked to the contractor about renovating your parents' house in Silver Spring before the holidays. Each word was a blade. I was painting a complete picture, past, present, future, where Bria had no place. The shared history, the assets, the family connections, the long-term plans. She was just a footnote, a temporary distraction. Oh, I continued brightly. And Marcus, my mom called today. She asked about grandkids again. I laughed, touching his face. Everyone's been asking. I think we're finally ready, don't you? We've been talking about trying next year. I'd love a girl first, but healthy is all that matters. At the mention of children, Marcus's entire body went rigid. I turned to Bria with an innocent smile. Don't you think that's wonderful? The wine bottle she'd been holding nearly slipped from her hands. She fumbled to catch it, her face burning. Why yes, that's really great. I'm sure you'll be very happy. The irony of the mistress blessing the wife's family plans hung in the air. I pressed on, shifting to finances. Marcus, honey, should we pay cash for the Richmond property or get a mortgage? Either way, I'm transferring my half of the down payment tomorrow. Make sure both our names go on the deed. I said it clearly, both our names. A declaration of shared ownership. A warning that everything Marcus had was tied to me. Leave me, lose everything. Marcus nodded weakly, sweat now running down his temples. Bria had completely deflated. She slumped in the chair, all her confidence and flirtation evaporated. She'd come here with fantasies. Now she faced the fortress protecting this marriage, shared assets, family ties, history, futures, legal bonds, all things she could never offer or break through. I lifted my crystal glass, took a sip of sparkling water, and sighed contentedly. This is so refreshing. I glanced at Bria's plastic cup with exaggerated concern. Bria, are you sure tap water is okay? I could make you some iced tea. Water is so plain. The condescension dripped from every word. No, ma'am. Water's fine. I don't want to be any trouble. Trouble. Her very presence was the trouble. Marcus, I said suddenly, get some fruit for our guest. Where are your manners? We have a visitor and you're just sitting there. Marcus jumped up like he'd been shocked. He stumbled to the kitchen and came back with a plate of strawberries. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped it. When he set it down, I picked up a strawberry and held it to his lips. Open up, babe. Let me feed you. Marcus hesitated, then accepted the strawberry from my hand. The intimate gesture of feeding each other in front of Bria was both natural and deliberately cruel. I pushed the plate toward Bria. Please, help yourself. She stared at the strawberry Marcus had just eaten from, then at the plate, as if it contained poison. How could she eat while watching this? I was the wife. I had the right to these intimate moments. She was just an intruder forced to witness what she could never legitimately have. Bria's eyes had turned glassy, like she might cry. I felt nothing. My mercy died when I saw "I miss you" on his phone. The silence stretched until Bria, perhaps trying to salvage some shred of dignity, cleared her throat softly. Marcus, Mr. Johnson, how's your back? Did that muscle relaxer help? Her voice was small but concerned. My uncle's a chiropractor in Bethesda. I could get you his number if... I'm fine. Marcus cut her off, panic sharp in his voice. Totally fine. Don't need anything. Thanks. He shot me a terrified glance. Too late. Bria had made a fatal error. I let out a cold laugh. Wow, Bria. Such concern for your boss's health. I leaned forward, voice sharpening to a point. Tell me something. How exactly do you know about my husband's back problems? I sleep next to him every night, and I barely hear him complain about it. I let the word "sleep next to him every night" hang there. Does Marcus discuss his medical issues in the office? In front of the whole team? Or... I paused deliberately. Do you two spend so much alone time together that you know these intimate details? Bria's face went from red to purple. I overheard him mention it once, in a meeting, and I thought. Interesting. I turned my laser focus on Marcus. And you? Why are you discussing your personal health issues with interns? Next time something hurts, tell me, your wife. Don't make 23-year-old girls worry about you. What will people think? That I don't take care of you at home? I paused, then struck. Remember 3 weeks ago? You texted me you had to work late. Client emergency. You came home at midnight complaining your back was killing you. Funny, I'm just now learning what kind of client emergency that was. Marcus's head dropped. He knew exactly what I was referencing. That night he'd actually been with Bria, probably playing the suffering hero to gain sympathy. The mask had been ripped off, exposing their inappropriate relationship for what it was. The clock showed 9 p.m. Time to end this. I slowly pulled out my phone and set it on the table. I swiped through it casually, then sighed dramatically. Social media is wild these days. I was just reading about another cheating scandal. Some CEO got exposed. Trending on Twitter. I shook my head. My girlfriends tell me these young women nowadays have zero boundaries. They slide into married men's DMs like they're single. No respect. I paused, watching both of them squirm. You know, I help Marcus with work stuff sometimes on his phone. And lately, I've noticed messages from someone young. Flirty messages. A girl's name. Innocent-sounding name, actually. Bria had stopped breathing. Just the other day, I continued softly, dangerously. I was sitting right here. Marcus was cooking dinner in the kitchen. Suddenly, a text came through. I looked directly at Bria. 3 words. I miss you. With a heart emoji. Bria's face went white as paper. Can you imagine? I smiled without warmth. The audacity of sending "I miss you" to a married man while his wife is home? Was she challenging me? Did she think I was stupid? Did she think I wouldn't find out? My words hit Bria like physical blows. Her eyes widened with pure terror. She understood everything now. The "I miss you" message. The reply, "Come over. My wife isn't home." It had all been a trap. A perfect trap that I had set. And she'd walked right into it like a fool. Bria's hands started trembling violently. She looked at me like I was a demon. She'd thought I was some naive, trusting housewife. Instead, she'd encountered a woman who'd been 3 steps ahead the entire time. I'd known everything from the beginning, but I'd played it perfectly. Invited her in, served her water in a plastic cup, offered her food, and then, layer by layer, I'd stripped away every shred of her dignity until she sat before me completely exposed. Marcus turned to me, absolute horror on his face. He'd never imagined I'd read that message, much less that I'd be calculating enough to lure Bria here just to destroy her. His fear of me was palpable. He'd catastrophically underestimated his wife. I stared at Bria. My gaze was ice and iron. I said nothing else. My silence was the verdict. Bria broke. The psychological pressure, Marcus's pathetic cowardice, the brutal truth, it crushed her completely. She grabbed her purse frantically, nearly knocking over the plastic cup. She jumped up, legs shaking so badly she stumbled. "I have to go," she stammered, not looking at either of us. "My roommate, emergency. I'm sorry. I can't." Her voice cracked, on the verge of tears. She didn't wait for permission. She fled toward the door like a criminal escaping a crime scene. The wine and bakery box sat abandoned on our coffee table, evidence of her humiliating failure. Marcus started to rise, probably to walk her out or apologize. I grabbed his thigh hard, nails digging in. My look said everything. Don't you dare. He froze, watching helplessly as Bria disappeared. I stood and followed her slowly to the door. She was fumbling with the doorknob, hands shaking too much to turn it properly. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her struggle. When she finally got the door open, I spoke. She froze, then turned with terrified, pleading eyes. I stepped closer and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. Next time you want to visit my husband, call ahead. Random women showing up at our home at night. The neighbors talk. We have a reputation in this community. I paused. And remember, Marcus's wife isn't always away from home. In fact, she's never away when it really matters. Every last drop of color drained from Bria's face. She nodded frantically. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. Leave. She ran down our hallway toward the elevator, pressing the button over and over, desperate to escape. I watched until the elevator doors closed, swallowing her whole. I smiled faintly. One down. The young predator had been caught, humiliated, and released. Too traumatized to ever return. But the war wasn't over. The real enemy, the one who'd actually betrayed me, still sat in my living room. I turned and closed the door. The lock clicked with finality. The trial of the cheating husband was about to begin. I didn't return to the living room right away. I stood by the door, hand on the lock, fighting waves of nausea. I'd executed the performance flawlessly, but the cost was the gaping wound in my chest that wouldn't stop bleeding. When I finally walked back in, Marcus hadn't moved, still frozen on the sectional, head down, hands clasped between his knees. He looked pathetic, nothing like the man I'd married. His misery inspired zero pity, only contempt. I walked to the coffee table, picked up his phone, looked at it, looked at him, and then, crack! I slammed it against the glass table. The screen exploded into a spider web of cracks. Just like our marriage. Marcus jumped, staring at me with pure terror. I crossed my arms and looked down at him like the insect he was. Explain yourself, I said. My voice deadly calm. Come over. My wife isn't home. I sent that message. Did you actually think I was clueless? Did you think I was that stupid? Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Baby, no, this is a misunderstanding. Bria and I are just co-workers. Her showing up tonight shocked me as much as... Stop. My voice cut like a blade. Do not insult my intelligence right now. His lips trembled. She's just an intern who got confused. Developed a little crush. I never encouraged. I let out a bitter laugh. A coworker sends you I miss you texts at night? A coworker knows about your back pain better than your own wife? A coworker shows up at your house with wine thinking your wife is gone? I moved closer, my voice dropping to something dangerous. We've been married for 7 years, Marcus. I know you. I know every tell, every lie, every guilty look. That panic when the doorbell rang? That cowardice in front of your mistress? Everything gave you away. Marcus's head dropped. No response. His silence was a confession. The man I'd loved, trusted, built a life with was nothing but a liar and a coward. I went to my bag and pulled out the manila folder I'd prepared. I'd been gathering evidence for 2 weeks. I threw it at him. Papers scattered across his lap and the floor. Credit card statements. Charges I'd highlighted in yellow. The Wharf. $287. Hilton Tyson's Corner. $312. Victoria's Secret. $156. Tiffany & Company. $423. Nordstrom. $198. Explain these, I demanded, my voice rising. $423 at Tiffany's? For our anniversary, you gave me a $60 Pandora charm, but you bought her a $400 bracelet? Your generosity is truly touching. Marcus's hands shook as he picked up the statements. Sweat poured down his face, but I wasn't finished. I pulled out printed screenshots, conversations from his tablet where he'd forgotten to log out of iMessage. Messages that made me sick. Plans for secret meetups. Sweet nothings that twisted my stomach. Movie tickets from 3 weeks ago, 10:30 p.m. showing. The same night he'd texted me about working late on a client proposal. Hotel receipts from Tyson's Corner. 3 different dates over 2 months. Finally, I threw down the last piece. Long reddish-brown hairs I'd found in his car. On the passenger seat, In the back seat, my hair was black and natural evidence, undeniable evidence. Marcus crumbled. There was no more room for lies. He slumped back against the sectional, arms falling limp, and then he started crying. Real tears, ugly crying. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened." She came on to me. I tried to resist. "I'm weak. Please forgive me. Just this once. I'll end it. I swear to God, I'll end it." The classic playbook. Blame her, blame weakness. Never take real accountability. I felt frozen watching him cry. Once, his tears would have broken my heart. Not anymore. I walked to the kitchen. I grabbed the Dutch oven with the pot roast he'd spent 6 hours cooking. Under his shocked gaze, I carried it to the sink and dumped the entire thing down the garbage disposal. The meat, the vegetables, the gravy, all of it ground up and washed away. The delicious smell turned rancid as it hit the drain. I turned to face him, my voice like ice. "My love for you was like that pot roast. Once it was valuable, carefully made, something precious. But once it's contaminated with betrayal and lies, it's nothing but garbage. And I don't eat garbage." Marcus stared in horror at what I'd just done. Then he ran to me, actually fell to his knees and grabbed my legs, hugging them, sobbing into my jeans. "Please don't leave me. Please. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll get therapy. I'll cut off all contact with her. I'll call your parents and apologize. Please, baby, please. Don't throw away 7 years. I love you. I made a mistake. Please." He was desperate, pathetic, begging. I stood rigid as stone, letting him cry and plead. My heart was already dead to him. His promises meant nothing. If he'd valued our 7 years, he wouldn't have slept with her. If he'd thought about our families, he wouldn't have spent $4,300 on her in 3 months. If he'd loved me, none of this would have happened. I pushed his hands away coldly and stepped back. "Keep whatever dignity you have left. Don't be pathetic. My decision is final." I turned and walked to our bedroom. Inside the closet was the suitcase I'd packed that afternoon. I pulled it out and threw in a few more items: toiletries, my laptop, important documents. I wasn't taking much, just what was mine. This house, this furniture, all of it felt contaminated now. I rolled the suitcase back to the living room. Marcus was still on the floor, sobbing. I dropped a sheet of paper on the coffee table. It was a promissory note, documentation of the $35,000 loan my parents had given us 3 years ago for the down payment on this townhouse. My father's signature was at the bottom, along with copies of the bank transfers. "This $35,000 is a debt," I said coldly. "Don't even think about not paying it back. When we sell this house, the first thing you'll do is return every penny to my parents. Then we split whatever's left. And you're taking over the full mortgage until it sells." Marcus looked at the paper, then at me. Pure despair. He was unemployed. No, wait, he still had his job. But he wouldn't for long. I'd make sure of that. And where would he get $35,000 plus half the house value? "The house is in both our names," I continued. "But I'm not fighting for it. You can keep it. Live here with your intern girlfriend for all I care. But my parents' money? You're paying back every single cent." Marcus stared at the numbers, the reality crushing him. I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. Before leaving, I took one last look at what used to be our home. The place where we'd celebrated promotions, hosted Thanksgivings, made love, dreamed about our future. Now it was just the tomb of my dead marriage. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The sound of the door closing behind me echoed once, putting an end to 7 years of my life with a cheating coward. I walked toward the elevator with steady steps, my suitcase rolling behind me. A new life was waiting. It would be hard, but at least it would be honest. The Uber drove through the quiet streets of Alexandria. I sat in the back seat watching the streetlights blur past, my mind blank but strangely light. I didn't cry. The tears seemed to have crystallized into cold determination. I was headed to my best friend Taylor's apartment. We'd been friends since college. She was now a divorce attorney at one of DC's top family law firms, specializing in high-asset cases and infidelity. She was sharp, ruthless, and fiercely loyal. I'd texted her ahead of time, so she was waiting in the lobby when I arrived. Seeing me step out with my gaunt face and pulling a suitcase, Taylor didn't ask questions. She walked over and pulled me into a tight hug. That warm gesture almost broke me, but I held it together. This wasn't the time for weakness. Taylor took me up to her apartment, A sleek one-bedroom in Old Town with exposed brick and a view of the Potomac. She poured me a glass of wine and told me to sit and tell her everything. So I did. From the credit card statements to the text message, from the trap I'd set to the confrontation with Bria, from destroying Marcus's phone to dumping the pot roast. I spoke with surprising calm, like I was narrating someone else's story. When I finished, Taylor slammed her hand on the table. "That's my girl. You handled that perfectly. Civilized but absolutely savage. That little homewrecker won't show her face around him again." Then Taylor's lawyer brain kicked in. She pulled out her laptop and started taking notes. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," she said, fingers flying across the keyboard. "First, we're filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. Virginia still recognizes fault-based divorce, which works in your favor. Second, we're going after assets. That townhouse, his 401k, everything." She paused and looked at me with a gleam in her eye. "Third, we're going to make sure his employer knows exactly what kind of man they've got representing their company." I raised an eyebrow. Taylor explained. "He's been using company credit cards for personal expenses with her, right? Taking her to dinners and hotels on the company dime? That's embezzlement. Fraud. And having a sexual relationship with a subordinate intern? That's a massive HR violation and potential lawsuit waiting to happen for the company." She leaned forward. "We're not just divorcing him. We're ending his career. He needs to understand that actions have consequences." I thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. "Do it." We spent the rest of the night organizing evidence into a comprehensive file: bank statements, credit card receipts, screenshots of messages, hotel bookings, everything time-stamped, documented, organized like a legal brief. Taylor drafted 2 documents. The first was a petition for divorce with a detailed accounting of Marcus's infidelity and misuse of marital assets. The second was a formal complaint to his company's HR department and ethics hotline. "This is nuclear," Taylor warned. "Once we send this, there's no going back. He'll lose his job. His reputation will be destroyed. He might never work in consulting again." I looked at the evidence spread across her coffee table. The proof of his betrayal. The money he'd spent on another woman while I worked overtime to help pay our mortgage. "Send it," I said without hesitation. He made his choice. Now he lives with it. That weekend passed in eerie silence. Marcus called and texted nonstop. I'd blocked his number, but he tried emailing, messaging me on LinkedIn, even getting his brother to call me. I ignored everything. I'd said what I needed to say. Monday morning at 9 a.m. sharp, right when everyone at his office would be settling in with their coffee, Taylor hit send on both documents. The divorce petition went to Marcus via certified mail and email. The ethics complaint went to his company's CEO, chief HR officer, head of legal, and the anonymous ethics hotline. Then we waited. According to a mutual friend who still worked at Marcus's firm, the email hit like a meteor strike. Marcus apparently tried to act normal when he got to the office that morning. But by 10:30 a.m., he was called into a conference room with HR, legal, and his VP. They presented him with printed copies of everything. The messages with Bria, the credit card charges he'd falsely categorized as client entertainment, the hotel receipts during work hours when he was supposed to be in meetings. It was embezzlement, fraud, sexual harassment of a subordinate, all violations that could expose the company to lawsuits. Marcus tried to explain, to make excuses, but Taylor had built an ironclad case. By noon, Marcus was suspended without pay pending a full investigation. By 2 p.m., security was escorting him out of the building with a box of his personal items. Everyone saw the walk of shame through the open office floor plan. Whispers followed him. People he'd worked with for 6 years watched him being marched out like a criminal. That public humiliation would follow him forever in DC's tight-knit consulting world. I heard about it through my friend and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No joy. Just cold confirmation that justice existed. When you betray your wife and abuse your position of power, you deserve to face consequences. 3 days later, Marcus's termination was official. The internal memo cited gross violations of professional ethics, financial misconduct, and inappropriate relationship with subordinate staff. Marcus not only lost his $180,000 salary, he was also blacklisted. In DC consulting circles, word travels fast. Within a week, every major firm knew his name and why he'd been fired. His LinkedIn was flooded with connections removing him. Recruiters who'd once pursued him went silent. The financial impact hit fast. Without his income, Marcus couldn't afford our $3,400 monthly mortgage, the car payment, the credit cards, the personal loans. My phone kept ringing with his new numbers. I finally answered one call. "Please," Marcus begged. "Help me. I'm drowning. I can't make the mortgage. The bank's threatening foreclosure. I'll lose everything." "You should have thought about that," I said flatly, "before you spent $4,300 on your mistress in 3 months. I'll pay you back. I'll get another job. Just please, ask your parents if they can wait on." "My parents?" I laughed harshly. "You want my parents to wait while you figure out your life? After you betrayed their daughter? You're out of your mind." "I made a mistake." "You made a choice. Multiple choices. Every hotel booking. Every lie. Every time you texted her while I was sleeping next to you. Those were choices. Now you live with the consequences." I hung up. Taylor made sure his termination included clawback provisions. The company demanded he return $8,700 in fraudulent expense reimbursements. He had 30 days or they'd sue. Marcus was buried in debt with no income. As for Bria, her fate was equally devastating. When the investigation started, HR immediately pulled her into questioning. She admitted to the relationship, probably hoping honesty would save her. It didn't. Her internship was terminated immediately. Not just terminated, revoked. The offer letter for her full-time position after graduation? Withdrawn. The official reason: violation of company code of conduct and inappropriate relationship with supervisor. That went on her record. Trying to get another corporate job in DC with that stain? Nearly impossible. According to the friend who still worked there, Bria became a pariah overnight. The whispers. The judgment. Other interns avoided her. The story spread through the young professional networks, group chats, happy hours, LinkedIn. She deleted all her social media. Moved out of her trendy Navy Yard apartment. Apparently moved back home to Georgia. A $75,000 starting salary and a promising career, destroyed because she couldn't keep her hands off a married man. I didn't feel sorry for her. She knew he was married. She pursued him anyway. She sent those messages knowing I existed. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. 6 weeks later, we met in court for the divorce settlement hearing. Marcus looked like he'd aged 10 years. Unshaven. Wrinkled clothes from Target instead of Brooks Brothers. Hollow eyes. He looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes. I maintained ice-cold composure. Taylor sat beside me in a power suit, her briefcase full of ammunition. Marcus's lawyer was a bargain attorney he'd found on Google. Couldn't afford anyone better. The judge reviewed our petition. Taylor had done her job perfectly. Every piece of evidence documented, every law cited, every argument airtight. Marcus tried to argue that he still loved me, that he wanted to reconcile, that our marriage was worth saving. Taylor shut that down in 30 seconds, presenting the hotel receipts and messages. Then came asset division. The townhouse was our biggest asset, worth about $620,000. We still owed $380,000 on the mortgage. Marcus wanted to keep it. Probably pride, probably couldn't stand the idea of losing everything. He proposed paying me my share over time. Monthly installments. I actually laughed out loud in court. "Absolutely not," Taylor said firmly. "My client will not remain financially tied to her cheating ex-husband. Either he pays her 50% of the equity plus the $35,000 parental loan immediately, or we force the sale." Marcus's cheap lawyer sputtered. "Your Honor, my client is currently unemployed. He can't produce that kind of cash." "Then the house sells," Taylor said simply. "We're not negotiating." Marcus's face went gray. He knew he couldn't get $155,000 overnight. The bank was already threatening foreclosure. The judge ruled in our favor. The house would be listed immediately. After paying off the mortgage and my parents' loan, we'd split the remaining equity. Marcus also had to give me half his 401k, about $43,000. He signed the divorce papers with a shaking hand. His crooked signature ended 7 years of marriage. When we left the courthouse, Marcus stood alone on the steps. No car, he'd sold it to pay debts. No job. No home, it would be sold within weeks. No wife. He watched me climb into Taylor's Lexus and drive away. The price was steep, but it was entirely his fault. I received the settlement check 6 weeks later. After the house sold and everything was divided, I walked away with $187,000. It was a substantial sum. Enough to start over completely. Instead of immediately buying another place, I rented a nice one-bedroom apartment in Arlington near Clarendon. Modern building, rooftop deck, walking distance to the metro. Rent was $2,100 a month, easily affordable with my salary. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. No compromise. No what would Marcus think. Just my taste. Soft blues and grays. Plants everywhere. A reading nook by the window. A small dining table that was just mine. Every corner reflected who I actually was, not who I'd been pretending to be. The space felt peaceful in a way our townhouse never had. I threw a housewarming party. Taylor came, plus a few close friends from work and my book club. We sat on my small balcony overlooking Wilson Boulevard, drinking wine, laughing. Taylor raised her glass. To freedom. To never settling for less than you deserve. To my brilliant, badass best friend who handled her cheating husband like a boss. Everyone clinked glasses. I smiled. A real smile. Maybe the first genuine one in months. My phone buzzed. A notification from HR at work. I'd been promoted to Senior Marketing Director. 15% raise. New title. Corner office. I'd thrown myself into work during the divorce, leading a major campaign that brought in 3 new corporate sponsors. My boss had noticed. I showed Taylor the email. She hugged me tight. You're thriving. That's the best revenge. Not just surviving, but absolutely thriving. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood on my balcony alone. The city lights of Arlington stretched out before me. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably in some cheap apartment, struggling to find work, drowning in debt. I felt nothing toward him. No anger, no sadness, just indifference. He'd become irrelevant. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. It was from a woman named Jennifer. Hi. I hope this isn't weird. A mutual friend gave me your info. I just left my husband after finding out he cheated. Your story, anonymously shared, gave me the courage to leave. Thank you for showing me that women don't have to accept betrayal. We can choose ourselves. I stared at the message, unexpected emotion welling up. My pain hadn't been pointless. It had become a lesson, a warning, inspiration for other women facing the same nightmare. I typed back, you did the right thing. It's going to be hard, but choosing yourself is never the wrong choice. Stay strong. You've got this. I set my phone down and took a deep breath of the cool night air. The past was closed, locked behind courthouse doors and signed divorce papers. Before me stretched a wide-open future full of possibility. I'm Jasmine. I'm 34 years old, single, independent, successful, and genuinely happy. I took a sip of wine, savoring the way the bitterness mellows into sweetness on your tongue. Just like life, you have to go through the bitter to taste the freedom on the other side. Did you enjoy this story? Which city are you watching from? Let's connect in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, you can support the channel by sending a super thanks. Your support helps me bring more real-life stories like this one. I'm reading every comment and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how she handled this situation. On your screen right now, you can see 2 more life stories I think you'll love. There's so much more content on this channel about relationships, betrayal, and finding strength when life falls apart. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. See you in the next one, with love and respect.